Good afternoon. Today I am talking to Yael Cabily. Once again, Yael, how are you doing today?
Good, very good. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing good. I know we've worked on quite a lot of accounts and quite a lot of issues together. And lately, you and I have been working on selling Amazon accounts.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit how you went from an Amazon seller's lawyer to selling Amazon accounts.
So I'm still an Amazon lawyer. I still have my firm. We do trademarks, copyrights, patents. You know that. So in addition to the firm, about a year ago, I started a separate company called Fortinet, as in fortune and internet, with my partner Michal. She's also a lawyer and a businesswoman. She comes from the M&A world, so we kind of complete each other. But it started with the legal side. So I was, in the last 2 years, I've been helping a lot of sellers doing those transactions on the legal side. And then in the last 2 years, some of my larger clients came to me and told me, Yael, we want to buy some businesses. Maybe you can help us. And then some of my, private label clients came to me and asked if I could find them a buyer. And this is why we started this separate companies. So this is where we are right now. We helped, and we're still helping many of those Amazon sellers. We focus mostly on Amazon, other e-commerce businesses as well, but mostly Amazon sellers.
Okay, now I always assume that most sellers assume that you're not allowed to sell an Amazon account. So is this even allowed by Amazon?
Surprisingly, yes, it's allowed. Specifically, it's not forbidden. I mean, they don't, if you look at their terms of service, you won't find anything about buying or selling the account. They don't forbid it. They just don't talk about it. When we do it, when there's a transaction, we actually ask Amazon for their consent to change the ownership of the account. So everything is done with Amazon's blessing, and they agree. So you have a letter saying that you can go ahead and change the entity from the seller to the buyer.
Who are your typical sellers selling Amazon accounts?
The sellers, it can be those that have other projects and other, maybe another activity. They want to invest the money in something else. Most of them just, want to cash out and then start another Amazon business. That's most of my clients. Sometimes these are two, partners that want to, be apart, and so they had to sell the business. So really depends of the specific seller and where he is. They can be small sellers, they can be very large sellers who've reached a point where it's very difficult to manage this operation by himself. And, the seller feels that he needs to, now he needs an entire company with many employees, and he just doesn't want that. So, really depends of the person.
And who's the typical buyer? Other Amazon sellers or?
So it can be, it can be large e-commerce companies. They have software, they have the funds, so they feel like they can take, any brand and enlarge it and work on it for a year or two, and they can easily double their money. So that's one type that we see the most. We also see large sellers who, they buy a brand and they know they can do better. So that's another type. We see some private equities and VCs more and more because they understand, again, the ROI is amazing in this world. So these are more or less the buyer.
So now, how do you figure out how much an account it's worth? You can't just look by how much money is coming in. You have to, and you can't even just look at profit.
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, that's the question. So we look at the profit. We're going to talk about what the profit is, but we look at the profit, like the yearly profit times a certain multiple. The multiple can be between 2 and 3.5. That's the average. And plus the inventory. So you have the profit times a certain multiple plus the inventory. That's the value of the account. Now, how do you know what the profit is, right? So the profit in the Amazon transaction world, it's called SDE. Seller discretionary earning. It's usually what the profit that is left to the owner after all the operating expenses and the cost of goods, after everything has been deducted. So basically what we do, we take the sales, okay, the cash received from the sales, and then we retract the Amazon fees, of course. We retract the PPC. We retract the cost of the goods and other direct operational costs, like, for example, VA or a software, and that's it. That would be the profit that we would look at. We don't retract the salary of the owner. Okay, that's the only thing we don't retract. So we take that and then times a multiple of, let's say, 3. Okay, that would be more or less the value of the account plus the inventory.
The cost of the inventory, right?
The cost of the inventory, yes, the cost.
Right. So you can a private label account and a resale account using those formulas will come to the same numbers. I would think a private label account is worth a lot more.
Yes, it's worth a lot more. A reseller account does have a value. It's calculated differently. It does have a value because for example, it's ungated. It does have a value to be ungated on Amazon, especially for certain brands. But it depends how strong his relationships are with his suppliers. Because if it's a supplier that can tell you tomorrow, listen, we're not selling you anymore, or we're going to file RO complaints. So that would be something a buyer wouldn't want. So they really look at how strong your relationships are, the contract that you have with them. If it's an exclusive distribution, that's great. And if you're selling without authorization and you get complaint, that's a different issue.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long does a typical transaction like this take?
So it can take between 2 weeks, okay, that's the fastest I've ever seen, to about 3 months. Most of them are 2-3 months, because most of the time it's the legal, the lawyers who take their time to with their comments and back and forth. But I would say around 2-3 months to complete, from the moment we receive the account until we complete the entire transaction. Finding a buyer can be very quick and can take a little bit more if it's a very large account, of course.
So what is there a market for? I mean, I would say profitable private label accounts is probably through the roof.
Yes. So when you decide on the multiple, I mean, how do you know if it's 2 or 2.5 or 3.5? They look at several factors, okay? The buyers look at, first of all, as you said, if it's a growing account or if it's decreasing, okay? So a growing account, a profitable account, that would be the accounts that are, sellable very fast. In most accounts, we see, you can see 10 products, 3-5 of them are doing great, 2-3 maybe could be flat, and then 1 or 2 would be decreasing. So in most accounts, not all the products are profitable. Some of them, we see all the products profitable, and with some of them, we see everything is declining. So those are more difficult to sell. And they look at several factors. Again, they look at the age of the account. An account that is 1-year-old is worth less than an account, of course, of 5 years with like thousands of feedbacks, right? They look at the time spent. Okay, it's very appealing to buy an account that takes you like an hour a day versus an account that you have to fight hijackers, all day. So they look at the number of hours. They look at the reviews, of course. An account with listings with 3 stars. That would be difficult to sell versus 4.5. So they really look at reviews, and they look at diversity. Okay, so if you have just one product, and the entire account is one product or one product with several variations, that would be more risky, of course, for the buyer, because if something happens, then he just lost $2 million. So that's something they take into account. And of course, IP. I'm an IP lawyer, so I talk about it all the time, but you need a trademark. It's absolutely necessary for private label accounts. They look if you have a patent or a design patent, that's certainly a plus. It affects the multiple. These are more or less the things they look at.
Do you find that it's easier to get buyers or sellers?
For me, or for anybody else?
Anybody. I mean, are there more buyers or more sellers out there?
I feel that right now there are more buyers than sellers. But that's our feeling from our point of view. There are a lot of accounts for sale that are not necessarily appealing, but those that are, growing, they get sold very fast. So right now I feel there are more buyers than sellers.
Have you ever had any hiccups transferring it from Amazon's point of view, or so far you haven't had it all?
Knock on wood, no. Right. No, not yet. And we have Ed Rosenberg if okay. God forbid something happens.
Thank you. How do you prepare a sale?
So we tell the buyer, the seller, to first of all make sure they have the trademark, okay? Because in most cases, buyers simply don't want the account if it's not registered, or they're going to wait until it's registered. You need to get your financials in order, okay? You can't just say, I don't know. I don't know my cost of goods. I don't know my expenses. I need to see with my accountant that the deal gets stuck. So from the beginning, we help the seller preparing a clear, P&L to understand exactly where he is, what the expenses are. It's funny because some of the sellers discover a lot about their business just because they started the process. So get ready with the financials. I would say understanding the taxes, like understanding how much tax will be deducted, from the deal. Because, once you have the deal, you have a proposal. We're doing the legal side. You can't just go at that point and say, you know what, I spoke with my accountant and, I decided there's too much tax on that. So you want to be prepared from the beginning and understand exactly where you stand.
You're paying, maybe certain cases are different, but you're paying capital gains tax, right?
So we can do an entire presentation about tax. It really depends on what kind of deal this is. By the way, there are several kinds of deals. You can sell your entire business, like your company, okay, selling shares of your company, or you can sell the assets, meaning you sell the account or the listings, and you sell the trademark and everything, but not the company. I gotta say that most deals are assets, purchase. So you sell the assets and not the company in most cases, but we do see some other transaction where it's the company. It really depends. When it's a large one, it's sometimes the entire company.
Which country are most of the buyers located? US, China? My
connections are mostly US, and some of them in Israel. But I'm sure it's growing, and we every day there are more and more buyers. So I believe it will spread to China as well, and Europe as well. So, but we work mostly with U.S. and Israeli buyers.
Does anything change when it's international? If like one buyer is in Europe and one seller is in the US, or it's more or less the same process?
No, the only difference I see is with a European transaction, I find it difficult to transfer the account. So while changing the ownership of a US account is very easy, with Europe, we usually just transfer the listings. So, you transfer the listing to the buyer's European account, and you leave the European account because it can take several months until it's transferred. We just had one. It took 3 months for Amazon to approve the transfer.
So you transfer the listings and the inventory.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
you add the product from a separate account, like as a hijacker, for example, you add yourself to the listing, and then you transfer the inventory, you relabel it, and then you send it back to the buyer's account. And then the seller goes out of the listing.
Okay, that was really interesting. I know a lot of people have been talking about that lately, so we'll put the link below. And I'm also involved with Yael in selling and transferring these accounts. So we'll put the link below, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.